Shalom and welcome to It's All About the Aliyah. We're going to continue with part 2 of our conversation with Nosson Shulman. We have been talking about his personal journey and experiences having made Aliyah and now living in Israel. Nosson, welcome back.
Thanks for having me again. Every time I come back, I have a lot of fun.
Oh, I enjoy it. You bring such a perspective, an enjoyable perspective. Your story is a positive one, and I appreciate that. I mentioned in our last program that the number one question we are asked as speakers when we go out to basically raise funds to help the impoverished Jewish people that we do help make Aliyah. The question that we get often is, what happens when they get to the land of Israel? And you have been sharing a lot about that, and I do so much appreciate that. And another thing that Olim mention all the time is why are you going to Israel? Well, many will mention that they want to reconnect with their Jewish roots. Some will mention that they want to give a greater opportunity for their children, and they talk about jobs, and often they talk about healthcare, because the healthcare is so poor in some of the countries that they're coming from. Can you shed some light for our audience about that, what you've experienced since you've been in Israel regarding that?
Healthcare system here is excellent. But from many points of view. First of all, it's not expensive here. Now, by the way, free doesn't mean it's good healthcare. North Korea has free healthcare, but you have the best of everything. First of all, it's public. It's you can even call it socialized. But there are 4 competing systems that compete to get you into their system. There are 4 competing systems. So there's a 4-tiered healthcare system. It's all public, and they fight tooth and nail to make sure that you're going to join them. So by law, they have to give a certain amount of goodies, right? A certain amount of, for example, if a woman's pregnant, a certain amount of what do you call it? Sonograms or whatever you call those kinds of things. Sorry, I can't remember the name. But everyone's going to give you a lot more. Why? Because they want your business. So even though it's a public system, it's very cutthroat competitive, and we get calls all the time saying, you want to come to join us? If you come join us, we'll give you this. So it's a very good system. I grew up in Canada where we had free healthcare, but the lines are very long.
I've heard that. Yes.
My daughter my youngest one was born at 25 and a half weeks. So less than 6 months. So we're talking about an age where it's miraculous, and she's growing great. But I don't know if outside of Israel this would have happened. I have no proof to this, but I'm not sure that in Canada she would have survived. Even in a first world country, let alone a place, let's say, like the Russia and the Ukraine. So this healthcare system has been very good, and it's definitely been one of the pluses here, and it's been working for us very well.
Well, that's very good to hear, because I think those expectations are there of the Olim that we're helping, and it's good to hear that that's they're going to be their experience and has been their experience when they get to Israel. The other thing I mentioned, obviously, is jobs, finding jobs, because most of the people we help are poor, and they're looking to find better opportunities. Maybe you could share a little bit about your experience, maybe your expectations, maybe what you had to do when you first got to the land versus where you are today. Share a little bit about your job experience.
So I was learning in yeshiva, sort of bringing a little extra income. My first job was on Fridays, handing out flyers at the local store for someone. I was making like 30 shekels an hour. I was doing it with purpose, so I did it very well. And by the way, I always say you have to do an honest job. I did. What kind of skills does it take to hand out flyers? But I did it so well that I was even able to ask for a raise within a month. But that was my first job. Was it enjoyable? Not the least bit. But it was, the type of job that I wanted. It allowed me to continue to learn in yeshiva for longer.
Good.
Later on, I started moving into, there's this company that every Ole should know about. There's this site called Janglo.com where they have jobs that are advertised mostly in English, but sometimes you'll see jobs that are like, you also need to know Spanish, you need to know Russian, or there's different types of jobs, some of them better than others. But my second job, which I found through that, was tutoring an older man in Torah studies. I would go; it was an hour a day, but it was something. And my next job afterwards was working as a caregiver for a 97-year-old man. Unfortunately, at the time he had Alzheimer's. He's since passed away, long passed away. But I mean, I was out at university and stuff, and I was changing his diapers, for example. But again, one thing that kept me going was I'm living in Israel. It kept me going, and so again, I did it with purpose. Those are the types of jobs. Again, I found them also through online.
Yeah.
Later on, I got a job in customer service that was a better job, and eventually, I finished my tour guiding collect because I was doing this as I was doing my tour guiding course. And then I started doing well in that, and since then I haven't looked back. But it was definitely a learning experience, and having to not have an ego, right? I could come up and say, listen, I come from a good family. I had a top degree and everything and stuff, and yet here I am, and I'm changing diapers of an old man. But that's what you got to do. That's what you got to do. What you got to do, and that's something that Olim that come in, you have to be willing to do what it takes. And you're not going to be doing it forever. I'm sure not. But you have to also come in without the ego. You have to be able to come in and say, if I want to live in Israel, it's important. I'll take the job, and I'll work on it, and I'll get something better later.
Wow, I very much appreciate that. I mean, I know that has been the attitude of my wife and I, our lives. As we were younger and money was tight, you do what it takes to get through, and then you work your way to a better position. And I think that the Olim that we work with, they're coming from more of a desperate situation. So I believe they would have that appreciation for the opportunities that they'll have in Israel, and for just being in Israel. And fulfilling that dream.
All right. Also, you mentioned, by the way, with Russians, for example, a lot of them work in. If you go to any government office, let's say in the national insurance or anything, you can assume that the person there's a good chance, there's a very high chance that the person there is Russian. So in terms of a Russian Olim that come here, they seem to they adapt very well, very quickly, and it seems that they do very well, a lot of them at government jobs. And so what I was describing was more Americans. But it seems like Russians integrate much quicker and therefore are able to get jobs, better jobs quicker.
Well, that's good. That's very good to know. We're going to talk on the other side of the break. Let's talk about the organizations that exist in Israel that might be there to help people find work. We'll take this break and we'll be right back. All right, welcome back. We're continuing our conversation with Nosson Shulman. Nosson, before the break, we were talking about being willing to work in Israel and finding jobs and opportunities. But I also understand that there are organizations that help in placement and finding jobs. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. The organization that helped us make Aliyah was an organization called Nefesh B'Nefesh, which literally means soul to soul. And they were the ones that explained to me the different baskets of goods I get, and they have different departments. One is employment, one is about the healthcare system. They have different advisors on different things that you would want to know. So once we made Aliyah, one of the things that I think they did very well is they have seminars. They had one seminar, for example, on which health, I told you there are 4 competing healthcare systems. Which one do you pick? Which one is best for you? Well, they gave a seminar that was very well done, and I became almost a mini expert after that one seminar. And then they
Excellent.
had another seminar, how to make a resume, because Israeli employers are different than American employers. American employer generally wants to see a more resume that's more well-rounded, right? More Israelis more the resume that they want to see is more what can you do that's specific to this job. They're not as well interested as the well-rounded. So I remember they on the phone, one of them helped me craft my resume. I remember that night, and it was a very stressful situation because I wanted to make sure that I had a good resume. A bit of a perfectionist.
Mm-hmm.
So then that night I realized I hadn't saved it. So I'm like, oh man, there's no way they're going to give me that kind of time again the next day. But I'll try anyways, because they'd given me like an hour or two before on the phone, and then they helped me again do it again. So having a good resume, I've become actually someone that people come to me and ask me about how to make a good resume for an Israeli employer, because like what do they, and of course it has to be all honest, everything's honest and stuff. But like there's certain for an Israeli employer, right? They're more interested in what you can do for them. As opposed to things that are less relevant, which might be relevant in other countries. So resume seminars, employment seminars, and those seminars really, I find, if you take advantage of them, and not everyone does, but anyone who does is going to get something out of it.
Yeah, they're there. That's a great benefit to have. The competition, I'm sure, is quite intense. So
Another advantage, by the way, and this is something that's applicable for whether you're from the States or Russia or South America, is that like with these organizations that help people, like when I would apply for a job, right? I didn't want to ask for something that was too high, salary too high, because oftentimes they'll say, what's your salary expectation? And from my experience, they'll ask you that question here. What's your salary expectation? So I would ask these organizations, I work in paralegal work, for example. What should I be asking for? So they would give me a range, and so I mean, being able to ask those types of questions on what to expect or what they look by people who know what they're talking about gives you an advantage that others don't have. One more thing I'd like to say, by the way, for job seekers is something that most people don't know about, but a lot of jobs that don't necessarily need Hebrew are advertised in Hebrew. So, you get an Israeli employer saying we need someone who speaks only English, American and stuff, but it's written in Hebrew. So all of a sudden, if you have a job that's being advertised for an English speaker, you're going to have 100 people, you're going to have hundreds of people sending in that resume. But this good job that's being advertised for an English speaker that's being advertised in Hebrew, nobody knows about it. So I would say anyone that's watching this that wants to make Aliyah, maybe use Google Translate. But there are jobs out there that are advertised that are applicable to you, even if it's written in Hebrew.
That's a good tip. That's good to know. And with Google, it's funny with Google Translate, that opens up the door a lot of ways.
And it's gotten better, by the way, because I've used it too. When I use Google Translate, I told you my Hebrew is decent enough that I could, but sometimes I'll take a look. If I ever have to use Google Translate for something deeper, I'll read it over first. And I find that Google Translate from like 2-3 years ago was awful. I think now it's gotten a lot better. And probably by the time this airs, in a couple of days, it'll even be better.
Yeah, that's good. So my assumption is that your focus when it comes to leading tours is on English-speaking audience.
Yes, all my tours are conducted in English. I take people around from all over the world, Switzerland, from the Russia, but Italy. But yeah, my tours are all conducted. I've actually given tours funny enough to people that don't speak English, but it went well. And I actually like them a lot. I guess when you can't argue with someone that you don't speak their language, so it was all really good.
Well, that's one advantage, because I know on tours people get tired and sometimes get cranky. That's good. Speaking of that, before we go to our second break today, why don't you tell our audience if they wanted to contact you as far as a tour in Israel when things do open up, how would they do that?
GuidedToursOfIsrael.com. Guided, GUIDED, tours, TOURS, of Israel, ISRAEL.com. and the site will do the rest.
Very good. Very good. That's good to know. All right. Well, we're going to take our last break for today. And when we come back, Nosson, I'd love to hear about how Olim are helping other Olim, the new immigrants coming to Israel, how they may be assisted by those who have been there, done that, and had some experience. So we'll talk about that after the break.
Ezra International now has a brand new app.
Now you can connect with Ezra like never before.
Easily find all partner countries and discover stories behind the real people Ezra helps every day.
Access Ezra's 24/7 global TV network and learn all about what it means to make Aliyah.
And most importantly, it is now easier and more secure to financially help Ezra fulfill our global mission to rescue, return, and restore the poorest of the poor Jewish people to their homeland of Israel.
Download the Ezra app today.
Get it now on the App Store and on Google Play.
All right, welcome back. Once again, we're talking to Nosson Shulman. And Nosson, before the break, I did a little tease about Olim helping other Olim. Those of you who have come before and experienced Israel for a number of years, and how maybe you can reach out or have reached out to others, and maybe some stories about how they have helped in the process of others getting comfortable with the bureaucracy, as you mentioned earlier, and other challenges in Israel.
I guess the first story needs to be about a man named Yehuda Freilich. He is, I use my words carefully. When I say he's the nicest person in the world, I mean it. He's the nicest guy in the world. Mm-hmm. I was his marketing director actually for 2 years, from 2014 to 2016. He started a great thing for Olim that was so innovative and it helps everyone. He started a company called Outsourcing to Israel, which allows American companies to tap into Americans that live in Israel. So, let's say, for example, you want to hire, a good American worker. So some people will outsource, for example, to India. But if you outsource to India, for example, you'll pay less, but you'll also get a different culture, a different type of quality. But you have a lot of Americans that come to Israel, and they're experts in their fields, whether it's in high tech, IT, software, graphic design, and they come in, but they don't speak the language, so they have a hard time getting a job. But they want to work. They want to work for an American company, and they're willing to work American hours. So you get you get an American company that wants to pay, instead of paying someone, I don't know, $70 locally, they hire someone remotely that could work from Israel. Instead of paying him $50, but they're getting an American. And again, these are hardworking, tax-paying Americans because they still pay to the IRS. And but you're getting an American quality, and specifically, you're also getting someone who's very idealistic. So someone who's willing to uproot his life to go there, you're getting a certain type of employee. So outsourcing to Israel, which can be found on Google, is definitely a great resource both for employers and for Americans, or even anyone who has a good skill that can be done remotely. And when I was marketing director, I once contacted a bank, and they have a team of 20 people now that are in Israel and stuff. And so it's called Outsourcing to Israel, but really it should be called Outsourcing to Americans in Israel. So that's one company. Another very strong success story is a man named Isaac Levy, a jeweler from South America, from Argentina. He was, I think, a third generation, he's still doing very well, a third generation Argentinian. And he came to Israel at a very, very hard time. And now he's doing very well. By the way, his company is called Yavel, Y-V-E-L. Why is it called Yavel? That's his name backwards, Levy, because he sold at the time. It's easier now, but at the time he was selling to Saudi Arabian royalty. Having the name Levy could be a bit of a liability. Okay. So he called it Yavel, and he's very strict on hiring immigrants. I think 90% of his employees are immigrants. Good paying jobs too. He wants them to have good paying jobs. I'd say the most inspirational story about him is he started a school for Ethiopian Jews. He saw that many Ethiopians that come here had a hard time adapting, and many of them worked more like janitorial or maintenance jobs, and he wanted to give them a chance. So he started a school that teaches them for 2 years jewelry, and in that time they get a stipend. They get an ulpan to learn Hebrew. They get babysitting help so that they can train while their kids are taken care of. They get financial planners, everything. And after 2 years, so these become top jewelers. This school is now. He doesn't make any money off this. It's basically him taking his resources and having the school open because he wants to give back to Olim. So that's a very strong success story. I mean, it's a great. He and now he's opening up in other parts of Israel again, hiring Olim, training them and paying them very well. So that's a very strong success story. And he has Russians that work for him, Syrian Jews. So that's someone else. So that
I'll bet his employees are with him for life at that rate. I mean, that's an incredible way of training and bringing in people that I think would be very, very grateful for those opportunities.
And he's been very successful. Look, he's done what he's trying to help his brothers. He's trying to help and he's been very God's blessed him with a lot of success as well. So he's you have a lot of those types of success stories. You had another woman named Karina. She was a third generation, also from Argentina, chocolatier. She wanted to open up a chocolate plant in Israel in a town of like 200 people in the Golden Heights, and people were saying, "You're nuts! Yeah, you're gonna open up in the middle of nowhere." Very successful. Also, a lot of people working there that are very successful chocolate, very good chocolate. I bring my tourists there, for example. It's a great place to visit, and but she's another success story of someone who started a business. People told her it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And not only is it not working now, but we're talking about it. Not only is it working, but we're talking about her, and so are a lot of other people. So these are the types of.
You had me at chocolate.
That's right.
That's excellent. And if you take your tour groups there, I think that's another selling feature. Oh, very good. That's amazing. I mean, that's giving back, and bringing new opportunities and work and helping the economy. It's a win-win all the way around.
And that's on a smaller scale. On a big scale, on a smaller scale, for example, one thing that Olim need to know about Facebook, right? There's different Facebook groups called Keeping, just putting in the word Olim, typing it into the search bar of Facebook. You're going to see different Facebook groups where they share jobs and they share the travails they go through, right? Or they have questions about bureaucratic issues they're going through, or maybe they need an attorney or a plumber or something like that, or they need an electrician. So it's a great resource. So Facebook is something that all Olim, regardless of the language they speak, right? Because there's different groups in different languages. Facebook is definitely a very good tool for Olim, and so is LinkedIn.
Very good, very good. It sounds, this idea of you mentioned a brother. He was helping a brother. That is a very Hebraic, very Israeli concept. I think it's a concept we get from Hashem, right? I mean,
absolutely.
We should understand that and that's the way life is supposed to be.
I'll tell you back to Yavel about the Ethiopian. So there's a man that works there, right? His name is Daniel. He's a major in the Israeli army. He was one of the guys that was helped by Yavel, the jeweler. And he came when he was 4 years old from Ethiopia. He walked across Ethiopia barefoot with his parents. I think his sister died along the way. He had to go through Sudan. He was a refugee. Today, look, he's master's degree. He's a successful jeweler there. He's a major in the army. So I remember once, because that's another place I like to bring the tourists, right? Because it's a very tourist-friendly jewelry center. Someone asked him, so, how did you learn your English? And he said, this is Star Trek. And he gives the whole Star Trek. He learned it from Star Trek. And, just by his story, I felt like such a connection to him. Like, he came from a lot of poverty and stuff. And I just had to go and give him a hug. I gave him a big bear hug. It was just, it was very strong brotherhood. I felt a very connection to him. And that's really there is something to that in Israel too. It's something that can't be explained to those that outside.
Probably not. I mean, I know that in the gravest times in Israel's history is when you have to pull together. But I see that even though the joke about you have two Israelis, you have three opinions. I mean that of course you're going to have a conflict or argument or a disagreement, but it says really when it really matters and when the rubber hits the road, Israelis pull together, and I think that's a beautiful.
Absolutely, there's nothing brings us together. But this I'll tell you one thing from my perspective. People say that two people, three opinions. There's definitely a truth to that. But it's one of those things that that's like it's more it's true and it's a stereotype, but at the same time it's even the three. I'm in the taxi. I'm in a taxi ride, for example, and I'm speaking to the driver, and him and I don't agree on anything and stuff, but we still feel a certain bond, even if we don't agree. And by the end of that taxi ride, by the way, anyone who's taking an Israeli taxi, you know who he votes for, and you might even know how much he pays in his mortgage, and you might know how much you pay in your mortgage.
Well, that's it's really a joy. I've found that my friendships that I've made in Israel have lasted a lifetime, and I think that's a tribute to not only the country but the people. Obviously, it's very
strong. It's a very strong, lifelong bonds that are very, very, very deep.
Yeah. Yeah, and all of this, Nosson, has just made me long to get back once again. In fact, on that topic, why don't you give your contact information one more time? If anybody wants to contact you, whether they're coming to Israel or just learn more about Israel, go to your site. What was that site again?
Yeah, so my website is guidedtoursofisrael.com, guided, Guided, tours, plural, TOURS, of Israel, ISRAEL.com. You can also call me. I have an American number at 347-410-8935. On my website, by the way, there's a WhatsApp button. So there's a contact form. So there's many different ways you can contact me, and I'm definitely anyone who needs help or wants to have a really good time in Israel and really experience this country the way it should be, I'm here for you.
Excellent. Good job. And I look forward to that day when I can be there in the land with you, Nosson. I mean that. One day it's going to happen soon.
And by the way, here's an open invitation. We invite next on your next trip to Israel. We're inviting you for dinner one night.
Thank you. I accept. I look forward to it. Well,
wife's a good cook.
Good. And if she's listening, that's the right thing to say.
That's right. But she is a good cook.
Good. I'm sure she is. I'm joking.
She's looking at me.
I know. I can feel it all over you. All right. Well, Nosson, thank you once again. I've enjoyed immensely spending time with you, and I know our audience has as well.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a great time once again.
Good. We'll do it again. Well, thank you. That's all the time we have for our program today. I hope you've learned more about life in Israel for whether you're an Olim, aspiring Olim, or whether you're just a lover of Israel. I hope this program has meant a lot to you. God bless you. Shalom.